America can change. That is the true genius of this nation. What we have already achieved gives us hope, the audacity to hope for what we can and must achieve tomorrow. Now, in the white community, the path to a more perfect union means acknowledging that what ails the African American community does not just exist in the minds of black people, that the legacy of discrimination and current incidents of discrimination, while less overt than in the past, that these things are real and must be addressed, not just with words, but with deeds, by investing in our schools and our communities, by enforcing our civil rights laws and ensuring fairness in our criminal justice system, by providing this generation with ladders of opportunity that were unavailable for previous generations. It requires all Americans to realize that your dreams do not have to come at the expense of my dreams, that investing in the health, welfare, and education of black and brown and white children will ultimately help all of America prosper.
Barack Obama was supposed to be the president who would bring every race in America together. The first African-American chief executive even told all who would listen how he would seek to care for everyone regardless of race. Yet in light of what has occurred this week in Missouri, African-American leaders are furious with what they believe is the president turning his back on them, and thus leaving race relations at possibly the lowest point since the 1960s. How does America then recover? Welcome into MidPoint, founder of the WAAR radio network and syndicated talker, Wayne Dupree, and the CEO of People of African Descent in America, a group formed in the wake of the Trayvon Martin case, Trevor Lee Hardin. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Trevor, I'm going to begin with you here today. Earlier on the show, we had a similar debate where we had an individual tell us, an African-American from Texas tell us, that it was his opinion that race relations are now right back where they were in the 60s or the 70s, and we have not made many strides since then. Would you agree?
I must say yes, I do agree.
Why?
Because we're still in a sense of not having our freedom, not being looked at as equals in this country, and it's not fair. I feel like black people are still looked at as criminals, as deviants, and it's not fair to the African culture in America.
But you are saying that this is as bad as it was in the 60s or the 70s. We're talking about 50 years ago, that you don't think it's made much since then, much in the way of progress?
It's made a little bit of progress, but not too much progress.
Where has it failed?
I'd say in the sense of the economy, the economic sense of the African community, we're still in a rut, so to say.
Okay, Wayne, I'm going to turn to you right now. Same question. Do you agree with that premise?
Listen, in all due respect, things are different than they were in the 60s. They are very different from what it used to be. He's talking about the black community. There are so many black entrepreneurs out there right now that probably didn't have a chance in the 60s. But if you look at the sports arena, there are more millionaires. You know, if you look at music, there are more millionaires. So and if he's talking about working class, or if he's talking about the plight of the black community, well, they've always had a chance to vote somebody else. They keep voting for the same people. What do you expect?
Why then, in your opinion, does, and again, I'm going to ask you again with the same premise here, why does that then persist, that nothing has happened, that the African community is still where it was 50 years ago? And again, we've had many African-American leaders on this show who have pointed out that it is absolutely not that way, that there are many more opportunities than there were then. Granted, there are still problems, but why then does that exist, that opinion still exist?
Well, you have to have you have to have a dangling carrot to keep pushing dependency. These big government programs are still out there to carry people. I mean, if they weren't out there, if they weren't created, then you aren't going to have people say, well, we can't make it. No. I mean, if what we need is leadership, we need even the black leaders that are out there right now. You said that you had someone that said that things had changed or hadn't changed.
Basically, both. We have had some say that it absolutely
Okay,
hasn't changed
okay.
in 50 years, but those others who have come on and said, yes, it has changed and it has gotten better.
Well, exactly, it has, and anybody that says that it hasn't has, been not on this planet. See, the problem is you have to have a victim. You have to have a victim, and that's what these so-called black leaders that are saying that things haven't changed, because you have to look toward the government. You have to need them to be the savior of the community, and they aren't getting what they want. And that's why they're blaming white people, they're blaming Republicans, they're blaming Tea Party people, because they aren't working to make themselves better.
Trevor, I'm going to throw it to you right now because the word victim has been used in here, and there are many people who will say that a lot of African American communities allow themselves to be victimized. I think I'm working a little bit off what Wayne just said here when it comes down to being led by certain people and kept dependent by the government. How would you react to that?
I mean, you got to remember, African Americans were slaves when this country started, so we're always going to be, sort of say, a victim.
The Irish were slaves too.
Yeah,
the Irish were slaves too. The Asians were slaves too.
Until all races are able to sit down at the foundation of the government that they're being subjected to, there will be no equality for any race. I feel like that is the basis where we need to start today. That's where we need to bring it back to.
But was this not the foundation of the government here? When you talk about the foundation of a government, the first African-American president and the attorney general is an African-American. Is that not a good foundation to build on, and why has it not then been built on?
I mean, we're 44 presidents later. This is the first black president. You're looking at 200 years of governmental racial discrimination. This is what I'm talking about. This is what 480 is for, because we were slaves when this country was founded.
So is it your feeling then that it simply is going to take more time?
It's going to take more time and more people, more efforts coming together as an African American community. That's why I started 480, to get all the black people in America to come together and see that we can do things together as a unit, sort of like what Marcus Garvey was doing back in the early 90s.
Wayne, let me throw it to you right now with a couple of minutes. No, go ahead. You were going to add something.
Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with the black community getting together to make things better. The problem is that they all put most of them put their trust in the wrong type of leadership. They've been looking to the wrong leaders for the last 50 years. You have Al Sharpton, you have Jesse Jackson, you have the NAACP, you have the Pink Panther Party. All of these are in it for themselves. Now, whether you want to believe it or not, that's what they are. And until my community, the black community, at least addresses that and moves the old guard out of the way, things aren't going to change.
How much of this do you blame on the Obama administration?
You know what? Honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't blame all of it on the Obama administration, but I do blame a lot of it on it, because he doesn't understand the black community. Bobby Rush, in I think it was 2000, told the people of Chicago and basically told America, he does not understand the black community. He wasn't raised in the black community. He doesn't know about the black community. And Obama got mad because he was labeled as too white or too bright. If the black community needs to work out their differences and come together and then work as a whole, just like the young man said, but you can't put your trust in these so-called leaders, because Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are sitting at the table. And they keep saying you have room at the table, but they aren't moving.
Trevor, let me just ask you
Okay.
very quickly, 10 seconds. Do you need new leadership in the African American community?
Definitely. Definitely, 100%.
So you then would agree that people like Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, and others are the wrong leaders?
Yeah. I mean, they're doing a great job with civil rights and everything, but we're looking at unalienable rights. That's what we should be focused on, unalienable rights as human beings.
All right, we are all out of time, unfortunately, gentlemen. Trevor Lee Hardin, Wayne Dupree. We have a lot to talk about here in future. We'll do it again. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, a much easier way to find out if your car's been recalled. That and much more when we continue.